Hey, Joe Zarzaur here with Dr. Malone again for another installment of Zarzaur Law TV. The topic in this segment is eye injuries, specifically eye injuries related to children's toys. We currently have a couple of cases in the firm where children have been injured with various things. One of those cases involves a toy sword. Believe it or not, Nerf at one point made a sword that was not made out of Nerf material, but was made out of a real hard plastic, and it caused permanent damage to one of my client's eyes. He was a minor at the time, of course, and in the course of that work, we've discovered that there are physicians that do investigations into the number of injuries to children, specifically children's eyes, related to swords and different water guns. Dr. Malone and I have looked at some of the literature, and I was going to get Dr. Malone to talk about what to look out for, how to protect your child from eye injuries associated with toys, and what to do if there is such an injury.
Yeah. As Joe mentioned, I did a little bit of a literature search, and some of the numbers I ran into I wasn't surprised. And as you grow up, you always say, oh, you're going to injure yourself, watch out for your eyes, and classic movie lines, you'll shoot your eye out. So I kind of first laughed it off inside when Joe said, hey, will you look into this? But it was enlightening to see some of the toys and hopefully to relate the manner of the injuries so that you at home can say, how best can we position ourselves to at least avoid some of these injuries from the common culprits. Anyhow, there's about 250,000 ER visits with eye injuries to children per year in the U.S., and anywhere between a third and half of those can be somewhat severe. However, the ones that are okay, just go home, are just more of the corneal abrasion. Nothing severe here, and the vision's not going to be impacted. They'll be back to normal in a couple of days. Those corneal abrasions are more of the hey, you could rub up against anything, not even a toy. You could be wrestling with a sibling or a friend, and it could happen. But what we're talking about are what I boil it down to being three mechanisms of injury. One of them was the chemical injury to the eye, and those are like the silly strings and then party foam, where that's actually relatively innocent, unless, of course, you get an ulcer because of prolonged exposure to these compounds, and then that ulcer on the eye can get infected. So you get what we call a superinfection or a secondary infection because that ulcer is there. Normally, if that ulcer was not there, and it was just irritation, the irritation would go away and your child would be back to normal. Then there's the indirect injury where it's a laser pointer, and you can actually injure the retina from prolonged exposure to that laser pointer. But if you think about it, that you can also get temporary blindness from having basically a bright light in your eye, and then the kid does something, falls down some stairs, runs into something because they couldn't see. So the injury to the body, not the eye, is related because the eye can't do its job. And then lastly was what I call blunt force injuries, and the two things that were on there was what Joe had mentioned, basically anything longer than it is wide, like a bat or a toy gun or a toy sword or whatever, and then anything that has projectiles, obviously, one of which was super soakers. These guns actually put out a lot of force, and you've seen people play with them where they can shoot water, across the street and hit the kid next door, and that stuff, when you're at point blank range, can do some damage. And lastly was the water balloon launcher, which it falls into that, and those things can do some serious damage too. Again, close range, or even if you're a block away and someone fires a water balloon and hits you in the eye, that can explode your orbit.
Gosh, that's scary stuff. So obviously, kids don't have any meter when it comes to this kind of stuff. They don't have any way of knowing in perspective what things can cause. I think it's good for parents to be vigilant when it comes to these kind of things.
Yeah, and eye injuries, this one thing that I would advise, that anybody who, if you think your child has injured their eye, don't wait. It's worth going to the ER, even though, we're going to wait there forever and they're just going to tell us it's a scratched cornea. Hey, I'll take that news any day if that's all it is. If you sit on it and it ends up being something where there's an internal injury to the globe of the eye, to the retina, a tear, something like that, that's the stuff that vision can be lost from, and you can't get that back.
All right. That's good advice. If you have other questions about child injuries, whether they're related to toys or not, you can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com or call us at 855-HIRE-JOE. Thanks again.